Your Houston Morning News with Matt Patrick continues.
KTRH News Time is 6:16. Joining me right now is one of the attorneys for R. Allen Stanford, Robert Scardino. And Mr. Scardino, welcome to Houston's Morning News. Stanford found guilty of 13 of 14 counts. The jury now needs to decide if they can go after his offshore bank accounts. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you plan on appealing? I understand you were talking with our reporter earlier. So will the jury decide before or after, or would the courts go before or after the appeal after this $550 million he's got out there somewhere?
Well, that's what the jury will decide next, is whether or not the government can seize that money. And then there'll be a sentencing that will take place in the next several months. And after that, then Stanford can appeal.
You know, little consolation to those that have lost everything in this Ponzi scheme. Do you still stand by Allen Stanford? Do you still believe that he is not guilty of the crimes that he's been found guilty of?
Well, we're still under a gag order, so I have to be circumspect about my position on that. But I can tell you that from what was presented in court, he did have some defenses. Of course, the jury obviously didn't buy it, but he did have some defenses. And the government did not take a Ponzi scheme stand in this case.
What was the stand that the government presented?
Well, the government's position was it was a fraud, that there was a misrepresentation to the people that bought the financial product, not that it was a Ponzi scheme, as in the Madoff case.
I'm not exactly sure what the difference would be. I mean, the fraud was perpetrated based upon the idea of the Ponzi scheme, taking money in, telling people that their money was going to be invested, yet using it for your own personal gain.
Well, the premise of a Ponzi scheme is that it was a fraudulent business from the beginning, and that just, again, I have to be careful about the gag order. But I think from what was presented in court, there was lots of bricks and mortar in the ground. There was a legitimate business. There were 5,000 employees. Ponzi schemes, there is no legitimate business.
Attorney Robert Scardino joining us, one of the attorneys for R. Allen Stanford. And I thank you, Mr. Scardino, for your time here this morning. Hang on, when we come back, I want to talk about those that have lost everything, those that have lost an awful lot of money in this fraud. Whether we're calling it a Ponzi scheme or calling it a fraud, there's a lot of people out there that have lost everything. Is there any recourse for them?
Back to Matt Patrick.
KTRH News Time is 6:22. Joining us right now is Robert Scardino, one of the attorneys for R. Allen Stanford. And Mr. Scardino, I thank you for your time. I also understand you're under a gag order, so there's certain things that you can't talk about. But let's talk about even the $550 million that apparently is in these offshore accounts that Stanford has, a mere pittance to the billions that were lost. A lot of people in Houston and around the world, frankly, want to see this guy go to jail for an awfully long time. Is there any way that these folks are going to see any of their money back?
Well, that would be an issue for the receiver to address, that has been appointed to seize all of the assets and then redistribute it back to the investors.
Does Mr. Stanford understand the gravity of what he did? Is he still telling you that he is an innocent man and maybe this is something else that you can't tell me or can't talk about?
Well, Mr. Patrick, whatever a client tells his lawyer is confidential, so I can't reveal what he has said, but certainly his position has always been that he is not guilty of these crimes.
And he suggests that it is other people in his organization that were manipulating these funds, and he just thought that he had an awful lot of money at his disposal?
Well, he certainly did have a lot of money at his disposal, but his defense has always been that he was the guy with the big picture, and the person in charge of the money, Davis, manipulated the books.
All right, very good. How soon will we know? The jury, will they know by the end of the week whether or not they will find to go after those bank accounts? We should know something soon?
Yes, I would suspect that we should know that certainly by the end of the week.
Mr. Scardino, I appreciate your time, sir. I really do, and look forward to having you back on as this case proceeds and as it goes to appeal. You are going to appeal, correct?
Well, that's actually up to Mr. Stanford and then up to the judge to decide who handles the appeal.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Scardino. I appreciate your time.
You're quite welcome.